The experience of seeing the Blair Witch Project for the first time in the summer of 1999 left a permanent mark on my movie-watching psyche. It was deeply, deeply disturbing, and for reasons I couldn't quite put my finger on. Was it the gritty, low-tech nature of the cinematography, with its now antiquated high-8 video camera footage, interspersed with grainy black-and-white 16mm film? Was it the use of apparent non-actors, who at that point in the summer of '99 may have in fact been missing, as the film suggested?
Is this real or is it not? Because of the whole internet event that had happened.
I thought it was real.
The marketing was great. Everybody wanted to see it before it was even out.
Back then, the film's brilliant marketing campaign, greatly supported by a creepy website, suggested that the contents was in fact actual found footage, and that these young people had actually been killed by a supposed witch. Seems silly today, but back then it was more that people wanted to be convinced the events of the film were real. And while watching it, there was some small voice in the back of your mind saying, what if this actually happened? For us in that haunting summer movie climate, the Blair Witch Project became our own urban legend, and there was a perverse thrill in that. One of the most striking things about the film is that there is actually very little movie to be had. Yes, there is a narrative structure that unfolds over the film's brisk 80-minute runtime. Things happen. There is rampant anxiety amongst the characters over the dire circumstances of being lost in the woods. There are frightening scares. There are arguments and fights. There is even a climax. But none of these events are presented in a movie-like fashion. There's no build-up to the film's scares, no eerie music to suggest a supernatural presence. Things just happen, suddenly, shockingly, and without fanfare, just like they would in reality.
I see why you like this video camera so much.
You do?
It's not quite reality.
Josh's line signifies a deeper truth of not just the film's preoccupation, but what 1999 represented as a moment in history. The millennium fostered the public's growing anxiety about not just technology, but reality in general. If there was one word to sum up the feelings in the culture during that time, it would be escape. An escape from a constricting, corporate-controlled, consumer-focused reality, and into the endless possibilities of a new century. And this desire was unsurprisingly embodied in the major movie releases of that year, with characters whose lives were one of imprisonment, and who sought to break free from the bondage of an existence that was slowly sucking them dry. In these movies, reality could be whatever the characters wanted, if they could find a way to free themselves from the tyrannical forces that control their lives. But Blair Witch was different. For the filmmaker characters, the only solace from the unimaginable horror were the cameras they desperately gripped tighter as the film sped towards its inevitable climax. The cameras themselves became their only weapons, their only sense of power and control, because if they were going to die, they could at least control how it looked. Even if they never made it out alive, their stories would be preserved for others to find, and their terrifying ordeal would at least count for something. And for the audience, at least in that summer of '99, the movie screen practically disappeared, and we were watching reality. Or at least some kind of reality. A reality that was more real than any mere horror movie had ever presented. The hysteria of audiences presented with a manufactured reality presented as real has its roots in the 1930s. Orson Welles' infamous radio broadcast of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds sent unsuspecting listeners into a state of absolute panic. Pre-war tensions led many people to assume the broadcast was real, that real aliens had come to Earth to annihilate the population and take over. The result was pandemonium and mass hysteria in many cities. Wells's broadcast served as an example of the power of dramatic storytelling, and how easy the human mind could be manipulated into believing just about anything, if it were presented with enough conviction. Blair Witch preyed on this exact technique to fool the minds of an unsuspecting audience. The movie toyed with the notion of the movie theater itself being a safe haven for those wanting to escape everyday life. A movie theater had you trade your reality for another, of the filmmaker's choosing. But there was always comfort in the knowledge that what you were witnessing was staged. The screen represented the barrier which separated the audience from the events on screen. But in the movie theater in the summer of '99, that barrier was removed, and the animalistic forces behind it were given free rein to wreak havoc on the minds of the audience. Believing that what you were seeing may have actually happened was practically unheard of in cinema at that point. Other movies had toyed with the fictional nature of cinema, but in more tongue-in-cheek ways. Blair Witch's attempts were far more ambitious. Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick, the film's creators, were inspired to create the Blair Witch Project from the realization that the supernatural documentaries they loved were scarier than the actual horror movies.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
Maybe more than any other genre, horror movies prey on the subconscious fears of the audience in order to induce the terror. And the notion that some of these supernatural forces may actually be real goes a long way in stirring the minds of impressionable viewers. So yes, Blair Witch is only a movie. And like Josh says, it's not quite reality. But in that theater in the summer of '99, for me and the rest of the audience packed into the four-walled dream space, the movie screen blurred the lines between reality and fiction in a way no movie had ever done, and maybe never will. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like and subscribe button, as I'll be posting more content in the future. Thanks for watching.